Ben Riggs presents D&D Out Loud, Episode 100, Daggerheart versus
Welcome once again, huddled internet masses, to D&D Out Loud with Ben Riggs. I am Ben Riggs, apparently controversial D&D historian and author of Slaying the Dragon, A Secret History of Dungeons & Dragons. And over the past 13 years of writing and podcasting, I have met hundreds of creative geniuses in and around the world of tabletop role-playing games. And for this, our 100th episode, we have something very special for our audience. I have not one, not two, not three, but four, count them, four flaming torches of the human imagination to come on here and have a fascinating discussion, which I will then record and send out into the world. And first up, I have Ben Costa and James Parks. They are the Emmy Award-winning creators of Land of Eam, a warm, funny, and charming fantasy role-playing game. Before that, they created the World of Eam in their graphic novel, Rickety Stitch and the Gelatinous Goo, and I am so happy to have them on the show. Welcome, Ben and James.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So a thing Wizards of the Coast has said is that 2024 D&D was the fastest selling version of that game ever produced. And I'm going to predict that they sold 50,000 copies in those first couple of weeks and then made that boast. I would also predict that the other two people we have here on this podcast beat that record because we have Rowan Hall and Spenser Starke here. Starke and Hall are two of the cooks sweating over the stove and serving us Daggerheart from Darrington Press. Daggerheart sold out its initial print run in 2 weeks, even though that was supposed to last a year, all of which is prelude to say Hall and Starke are best-selling game designers whose work has broken out of the nerd ghetto to run riot in the culture at large. ENWorld praised Daggerheart as a high fantasy mashup of 4th edition, the Genesys System, Blades in the Dark, and the Cypher System, producing high fantasy combat in a collaborative storytelling environment. Welcome, Spenser and Rowan.
Thank you so much. We're so glad to be here.
And careful, Ben, we're going to bring you everywhere we go, so we never have to do introductions without you.
I've been working on being a hype man. Sorry, go ahead.
Obviously, I was about to say that your introduction was amazing. I agree with the sentiment.
I mean, once upon a time, I wrote a sonnet for Jonathan Tweet when I had him on. And so that was his intro. It was 14 lines of rhyming iambic pentameter, and that took so long. I was like, well, I can never do that again. But I try and make it special. So
being able to say that you've had a sonnet written about you is such a flex. So that was a gift that you gave.
That's true.
So longtime listeners will know my first question is the traditional one. Ben and James, I approached you and I said, would you be on my show? Who would you like to talk to? And they said, Rowan and Spenser. So I'm going to ask James and Ben, why Rowan and Spenser? And then we will see where the conversation goes.
Well, we felt like we had a lot of similar sensibilities in our games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious one, D12.
D12s, baby. Let's go.
Bad to say.
Supremacy.
D12 was my answer.
So yeah, there's a lot of amazing stuff in Daggerheart, and thought it'd be a fruitful conversation. Yeah.
It's so funny how I'm so sorry.
Oh no, anytime we can talk about the D12 and put it at the forefront, I think is an awesome opportunity for creatives to get together.
It's so funny how D12 lovers are so serious about it, and then everybody else just pretends like that die doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful die. I know, it's so funny reading through Land of Eam for the first time. I was like, oh my God, there's like so much cool, whenever you're looking at new games, you're like, what mechanics here do I recognize? What feels like it's something that I resonate with? What are areas where it's different from the choices I would make? And there were so many times where I was like, yeah, those guys get it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah.
it also, like, there's a little bit of OSR, a little more OSR influence in Land of Eam than there is in Daggerheart. We have a little bit, but you guys, there's these little places where we sort of carved out niches on how these games are made, and so I'm really excited to hear about your process and what you all made.
Yeah, same.
Same. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you guys, because I wanted to understand your philosophy and your process, because we felt the same way. We thought, oh gosh, like look at all these turns that are happening. Look at all these like dusty corners that are being explored. It's really fun stuff, and I think it's going to be great.
I was really excited when Ben contacted us because you guys are a writing duo. And even though Daggerheart was made by a much larger team on just kind of a day-to-day practical level, a lot of times it's just Spencer and I going back and forth in a room. And we have other people in for these fantastic bursts, or we're collaborating on other elements of the game. But there is something quintessential about that back and forth that I feel like if you've worked in a pair, you understand in a really different way. And I want to know what your guys' process looks like. Like, are you whiteboarders? Do you do everything virtually? Are you local to each other?
We are local, but we both have young kids now, so we can't really meet that often. We're about an hour away. So yeah, everything is on Google Docs. We're talking every day.
We do have one cheat code though. We've known each other since we were in the 2nd grade.
Whoa!
And we've been collaborating creatively, both like for fun and professionally, for many, many, many years. So we're on this similar wavelength in terms of when we craft our brief for what it is we want to create. We're definitely like simpatico. We know where we're headed with it.
You guys have been with every version of each other throughout your whole lives, essentially.
That's right.
Do you ever, when you're designing, does like 2nd grade James and Ben ever show up? Like, are you like, this is for you guys?
Do they ever leave, I think is the question.
Yes.
I mean, it's essentially like how we used to play on the playground, and we're just like riffing back and forth, like, oh, what if pretend this happens?
Yeah,
it's like make believe, like all the time. Actually, that's my favorite part of the process, is just brainstorming ideas with James.
Yeah.
We tend to be whiteboard people. We'll go to the whiteboard first and just like create our pillars, and then we'll detail from there. And so a lot of it is that same, like, let's talk in the room and let's imagine what is it that we're looking, what experience do we want to have? Like, what is the feeling that we want to create? And then from there, it's like, okay, well, let's find the mechanics that get to that feeling. And so we tend to start on that way too. I think I come from the indie school of games first. I mean, I played D&D for a little bit. I played D&D for like a couple of weeks. And then after playing for a couple of weeks, I was like, there's got to be more games out there. And then found a bunch of games and started playing those, and like Lady Blackbird and obviously Blades in the Dark, talking about John Harper multiple times, because John Harper lives in my brain rent free. But then also, also things like Genesys, and it's kind of getting into those. I think the first book I bought was Starfinder, and I had no idea how to run it or what to do. Like, I knew nothing. I just liked looking at the pictures, and then and then develop from there. But yeah, taking things from all over the gamut, but the core of that always being like, are these mechanics giving me the feeling that I'm looking for when I'm playing the game? And if they aren't, then I tend to bounce off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I was wanted to ask you guys, like, I read if it doesn't fit on a card, it's not Daggerheart on the interwebs at some point.
Yes.
And it made me really curious as to what drove that philosophy outside of, simplifying rule sets or whatever. But what drove that philosophy, and did that guideline ever take you somewhere unexpected? You talked about your pillars, and I'm interested, like, what are those pillars?
Well, you should talk about cards from the beginning, Spencer, because this was your OG vision.
Totally. So, when I was first starting to design the game, like one of the very first things was that it's going to use cards, simply because character creation for me is one of the big hurdles for a lot of new players. And I play with a lot of people that have never played role-playing games before. They're very creative. They tend to be writers or directors or, actors, or here in LA. And Rowan and I both come from the film industry. And so it's like a lot of those people I'm pulling in are really creative. If everything else gets out of their way, they're going to be great players. And so cards were a way of being able to pull people in, and here's 6 cards, choose 4, right? It's very easy for people they look at the art or they look at the mechanics. If they understand them, I kind of glean what it means. But so from the very beginning, it was like, okay, it is card based. And a lot of the designs that I've done before this have been card based, which have sort of taught me what that is. I mean, Alice is Missing is probably the one that is that people know the most. And that's all run via cards. And so I saw the power of that in those games, and I wanted to bring that same power to something that felt familiar to people, meaning like it felt a little bit like a trad D20 fantasy game on its surface, but the minute you get underneath it, you start to realize that it's not any of that. It is the genre is trad D20 fantasy, but the mechanics are not. I want to give people the feeling that they had what they thought they were coming into when they come into a fantasy role-playing game. And so so the cards were very specifically like, let's get people onboarded very quick. And then we found through development that when we wrote features that didn't fit on cards, they were too big. They didn't work for the game as well. And so we do have areas where things don't fit on the cards, like class features in specific are areas where we can be a little bit more we can have a little more spread.
Well, they're more robust. I think people ask us, like, because so many things are on cards, why isn't everything always on a card? And I think we put features of the game on cards because they are a tool that is serving a purpose, but that doesn't mean that every tool needs to appear that way in the game.
Right.
So for example, your weapons appear on your character sheet like inventory, because hopefully you're getting a really sick new sword soon. And that's something that you want to erase and adjust, and you need to mark armor, and we need space for class features to be a more robust toy when people choose them, because that's such a foundational piece of character building. But Spencer and I were just talking today about how restraint is the thankless side of design. Like, everybody always gets so excited about the more, every weapon, having a million features, and every like explanation being really hyper specific. And that is because I think in play, it is wonderful to make a really specific character or a really specific world that's customized to people that you're playing with. And when you're imagining in your own head, you also can run further than you ever could. But because Daggerheart is a tool set, it needs to be as useful as a tool is. Like, we need to give you a hammer, and we need to give you the Phillips head and all of those different things. And so I know that some folks want bigger cards, but the cards do a lot of work to tell us like how to communicate with the game.
Yeah. What I also find impressive about the cards is just the sheer amount of art that
we get to hire so many artists because of the cards.
No. Well, you all know how much art costs.
Yeah, I envy that you could and these are not just like single characters.
No, they're gorgeous.
Like backgrounds, and
well, that was one of the big things, was like when I brought them cards, that's one of the powers of publishing somewhere like Critical Role, is that unlike other publishers that I could go to with games, I brought them the concept and was like, just so you know, if we do cards, like, it's gonna, the price,
costs money.
The cost of the art is gonna be a major consideration in this. And they were like, sounds great, let's do it. And so so that's one of the few places we could go to and do that kind of thing.
And having the art so featured so prominently also allows us to really collaborate with the artists in a way that has such a strong influence on the game. Like our concept artist, Sean Ellis, who was also the art director on Hope and Fear. When we first started all the way back on Candela, he worked with us as well. And I always called him our secret third game designer because so much of what he creates is in lockstep with us and informs the mechanics that we build and influences the lore. And he has such a clear understanding of ways to cinematically depict moments in the game.
Yeah, totally sells the cards. You know what I mean? If it didn't have all the art, it probably would be tougher to get into as a player just coming in cold.
You can just look at the images and be like, I like how that one looks, and I like how that one looks. And it also, we found it helps to remind people of like what they have in their hand, because they'll look down and be like, oh yeah, I can do that thing. Like it also taps into that, like people like having their things that have like magic cards or like Pokemon cards. Like it taps into that, even though it's not a collectible card game, it taps into that kind of feel. And so people are like, these are my cards and this is what makes up my character. And so the cards used to sit on the character sheet itself, and we found that was they just slid around too much in play. They would slide all around and it was annoying. So
pulling my hair out
in your hand, it was insane. But yeah, no, it was definitely an exploration. It was a really fun exploration. And then when it came down to like budgeting, it was like, okay, this becomes very real very quickly. 270 something illustrations, different illustrations that all have to look the same, or at least feel like they're from the same world. But all need to do a very specific thing in conveying a mechanic we actually might be changing as we go through the game, right? Like that mechanic might change, and all of a sudden the art has to make sure it matches that as well. Like it was a big undertaking in that way. So I'm very proud of the whole team. There were so many people that worked on that. Our producer Elise and the art director and Sean and Rowan was fundamental in all of that as well. And so it was a Herculean effort from the entire squad.
That's impressive.
I think we all know like art sells games. Like you go into a game store and you
kidding me?
Candy shop. You just go like,
for those podcast listeners, I'm holding up Land of Eam.
So
art sells games.
I think it was last week, a week and a half ago, we had some folks over who were brand spanking new to TTRPGs, but creative. We knew like if we could just give them a first good introductory experience that wasn't intimidating, that they'd like take off running. And we offered them so many different games, and they immediately went to your game. They were all about the art. They were like, I want to be a little guy. We want to be silly. Like this.
The pitch is so good.
It's
like
so good.
Is so good.
And you guys captured it so clearly. Like we just let them flip through books, and you really depict the like exact fun that we ended up having right on the page. You guys, you both have art credits? Are you both doing the art on your book? Am I remembering correctly?
I'm the artist, or like art director, because it's based on my art. But for the game, we've hired a number of artists.
Yeah,
and Justin Gerard is the cover artist. He's one of our favorite artists in the world. So it was awesome to get him to contribute. But it's all based on our comics. And so when we say the Muppets meets the Lord of the Rings as our tagline, that's just like what we're trying to capture with our stories, really. And ultimately we just wanted that to translate into the game,
because you two created the whole like world before making the game, so you're essentially doing an adaptation of your own work.
Yeah.
What is that like? Yeah. No, please, Rowan, go ahead.
I have a really specific question about that. Spencer and I talk a lot about closed loop narratives versus like open loop narratives. So, or even just mediums. So, like closed loop is a movie or a TV show or a book, and you can make the bad guys exceedingly terrible because you know that they're going to get their comeuppance in the end, and also no one has to act that character out, and you can really control. If you're running a mystery, you can also control exactly when the characters find the clues and how they find them. Versus open loop is a TTRPG. You don't get a vote at all for what people are doing. And in fact, specifically, you're trying to facilitate them doing their own thing. So what
Yeah.
was it like taking something that you had very tight control on, very specific adventures, to make this toolkit?
It's a good question. It's something we discussed like thoroughly before we began to embark on the TTRPG. We're both huge fans of TTRPGs and playing them our entire lives, like, you know, from second edition Dungeons and Dragons to you name it. And we've been making games with our friends for as long.
Wow.
That's
And
cool.
so we're storytellers first, really. So we're thinking in terms of like, what is this graphic novel series telling the story of this world? Dungeoneer Adventures, this is another series we do from Simon and Schuster. It's about kids in the Land of Eam attending Dungeoneer Academy and learning how to become explorers in the Land of Eam.
So fun.
And we decided that what would be really fun is, well, we're continuing to write books, and we're always working on manuscripts. We're always working on new series for traditional publishers, and we tend to be working on Land of Eam projects primarily. And so our thoughts are, as the world tells the primary story of the Land of Eam, the game is there to help people live it within the parameters that they understand at that time. So
Honestly, it's a way for us to tell stories that like we can't or won't in a book series.
Right.
Mm.
when you only have 1,000 pages, you can't tell the entire story of what's going on in the world. But with a
Only
TTRPG,
1,000.
yeah, I mean, like multiple books at a time,
over like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
3-book series.
over a 3-book series.
I love that for you guys. That's awesome.
But we always like to say that, so there's the Rickety Stitch graphic novel series, is 3 books. In the first 50 pages of the first book, the main character, Rickety Stitch, a skeleton bard, walks across the Mucklands like completely in a montage. And then we went back and did a 400-page sandbox setting of the Mucklands, like with
What's the
all the
story
stuff
of
that was never
Yeah.
in the book. But we just had so much fun building out, the entire realm.
Yeah, we're world builders at heart, and we believe that the Land of Eam should be as rich of a character as Rickety Stitch or Cooperson or any of the other protagonists in the series.
Y'all are very good namers. If anyone ever called me Rickety Stitch, I'd be set for life. Like, it's such a good name, and it speaks to exactly what you're gonna get when you open that book. And Cooperson, I know exactly who that character is. It's perfect. Naming is so important.
So did you all have I assume that there was like a lot of world building that went into or not assume, I can see it. A lot of world building that went into making the comic book series and the book series that you all have done. And then coming out with this, was there anything that you had to create whole cloth new in Land of Eam that didn't already exist in those, or were you simply translating stuff that had already been made?
Well,
I say simply, knowing simply is never actually how it goes. You know what I mean?
Sure. I'd say like the gist of the Mucklands existed, but
Okay.
its story didn't. So
Wow,
we knew
okay.
that it was this, a combination of like a used to be forest and an industrial,
Yeah.
wasteland. And we knew that it had bogs, and we knew that we knew there were tycoons in it, but we didn't know all of these details, all the characters and all the different conflicts that were interweaving there. And we did the extra, really it was an exercise for Ben and I, and by drawing up sandboxes like the Mucklands or the Underlands, which will come out soonish, that's a playground for us to flesh out these different things that now start to talk to each other in a cohesive way. And as we continue to write new books, we intend to write many more Land of Eam sandboxes that actually fill out the map that some people would be, well, where's Grimley Wood, and where's the Middle Route Run, and so there's a lot of more places to explore that we do have lore that we've prepared, that we do have story that we've prepared. We just need a minute to
You
write
two are
something.
prolific.
I know.
That's insane, affectionate. Like, that's so much. It's just so much.
Yeah, I mean, we came off of Daggerheart Core. We worked on it for 4 years by the time it came out, and we came off of that, and within a couple of weeks people were like, and what's next? And I was like, a nap.
Yeah. That's always the
and-
question, isn't it? What's next?
Right.
Uh-huh.
It's a nice question to be asked,
such
but
a nice
also it
question
is
to be asked.
daunting.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I-
we worked on Land of Eam for what? We started
A lot of years.
really in 2018, like
Oh, yeah.
actually making it, prototyping it maybe in 2014 but not actually working on it
Wow.
seriously. So I
It was
mean,
originally
it took, like,
called the Rickety Stitch RPG.
Yeah.
Like that's like what we called
Oh,
it
wow.
internally, because it was like it's the RPG for the Rickety Stitch story / world.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's crazy.
I mean, we have someone on our team, Danny Gage, whose job is in large part to track lore and important details in our game, and that she is she just knows everything. I am constantly like being like, I will not be shackled by my own lore. Like we're just always trying to leave open doors for future us, because I
Yeah.
don't want
Yes.
5 years from now Rowan to look at me and be like, girl, what were you thinking? And that's
We've already run into that. We tried to avoid it. We've already run into it.
we
Yeah.
do that too.
Yeah, we do that too. I actually painstakingly manage like 10 different documents. Like I manage a
Mhm, mhm.
sandbox document for a book that won't come out for 5 years, because I make a mention of something and I'm like, oh, that's great. I got to remember that. And I put it into the document so that it's logged, because it really the primary story, like that will come out in graphic novels and chapter books, that I intimately know. That's like in my brain all the time. But when we put out a sandbox, we play an actual play every week, and there's like plenty of times where I don't remember the character's hook, or I like recognize the name, but I'm like, what was his deal again?
It
And I
only
can't-
works because James doesn't remember everything. If he
Yeah,
remembered
and
everything,
I don't play with it in front of me, so I don't reference it at all. So it's just so that I
Thankfully,
can try to keep it
yeah.
fresh.
Yeah. Well, also if you have that document in front of you, you start. I've done it before. I'm like, then I'm just scrolling through a document during the game, and I'm like, no, I need to be listening to what the players are doing. That's the whole reason I'm here. I love that. Well, what I know that there's a lot of I see in it a lot of rolling table, OSR influence, and but then also some like story game. No initiative, which I'm sure you all have maybe hit some of the hurdles with players as well. That are like, what do you mean there's no initiative? And like having to navigate that, and those kinds of things. So I was wondering, it seems like we have a lot of shared overlap as far as inspiration is concerned, but I was wondering for you, what your like main games that you were like, these are things that are North Stars for us, that if we hit this like that or this like that, that we'll feel good about the game.
well, you mentioned Genesys.
Yeah.
And I haven't played Genesys, but I played Star Wars. We
Yeah.
played Star Wars Edge of the
Yep.
Empire, and that's what introduced us to the dice, and just having the, failure with a twist type of thing.
Mhm.
I mean, success with a twist, failure with a plus, having that dynamic result. And so that kind of led us down that path. Obviously powered by the Apocalypse Dungeon World.
Yeah.
But I was never like very satisfied with the 2d6. It always felt the bell curve always felt too sure. Like
We like it swingy.
yeah, we like it swinging.
Well, yeah, I mean that explains why you're doing a 1d12, which is less swingy than the d20, but more swingy than a 2d6 kind of system. And
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
the 2d12 for Daggerheart was kind of similar in that I like a bell curve, but I like it's not quite a bell curve. It's like a mountain or what, it's like an arrow,
Yeah,
essentially.
right.
It's a triangle. But with the 2d12, it still is a little bit swingier than it would be at a tight 2d6. Like I get more range. And so that's part of why I like the d12, is because it was big enough to have a range of results. Was that kind of what you guys were thinking when you went the 1d12 route?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Our like one of our I'll call it one of our pillars actually.
Sure.
Is that it's obviously it's a creative forward game. So we like the idea, and we say this when we're like touring on our books or whatever. We'll say throw rocks at your characters, like conflict.
Yeah,
is what
I
makes
love
great
that.
stories.
I loved that guidance, that GM guidance. that you put
Great
in.
guidance.
So good.
Yeah, it's like it like bad news creates moments that everyone talks about for years.
Yeah.
And with a D12, you get that swingy, and with a creative game, you can do anything to manipulate the world or change your situation. Like we often talk about how the bestiary in Land of Eam is filled with perilously dangerous things. You really like shock people, like whoa, like
That's in Land of Eam. I thought
this is
this
is Land of Eam. Goodness gracious me! And we're like, yeah, because the way that you defeat that thing is not going to be swinging an axe. Like Sauron wasn't defeated by fisticuffs. They had a really clever plan to throw his ring into a volcano. It's like, okay, pay that off. Make it creative. Find a creative way to defeat the Lich. You're never going to win one-on-one, but when you read a book, they never do it that way. It's like that's how I remember that when that crazy thing worked. Oh wow. And so the D12 just like makes more twists and turns, bads and goods, and that's sort of why I think it's a great solution.
And one of Daggerheart's like player ideals, right, is like embrace danger.
Mhm.
Yeah, embrace danger.
And that, I think that goes with what James is saying, like in having the swingy nature, like we want our characters to have failure moments and embrace those, because it reflects the characters in our stories. Who Rickety Stitch the Bard is a terrible fighter. He's not defeating much in combat. So like having those moments where, you know, you are wildly, you know, falling, you know, failing upwards. That's always fun. That always makes for a great moment during a session.
Well, the core
very
of
fun
core
to
of-
fail.
Yeah, the core of drama, is conflict, right? So if there's nothing providing the conflict, then like, what are we doing, right? like it's like there's not as much interest there.
Right. And without failure, you can't relate to anything. It's like we want to be able to relate to the characters we're playing and to the characters at the table and root for each other. And so when things don't go great, we pile in. We all pull together. Okay, we're gonna figure this out. And that's where it gets really fun.
Yeah, and I always remind folks that, you know, the decisions your character makes are not and should not necessarily be the decisions you would make. Like you have to have the guy who's going down the stairs into the basement, even when the whole audience is screaming, "What are you doing? It's a dark basement." Because we're here to tell the story about that guy, because the people who wisely ran off and moved out of state aren't in proximity of the monsters anymore. We don't tell their story. There's nothing going on with them. They're
Well, I
doing
think
their
that's
taxes
also-
and living their life.
Yeah, there's also something really interesting to me about that in like genre, playing in genre and understanding the genre as a player as much as the GM and the players both have to opt into the genre, or ideally are opting into the genre that you're playing in, so that everybody can lean into what that genre does. Like for example, running Land of Eam, there was a moment where somebody wanted to do something that would in the real world absolutely not work, but in cartoon physics, you know, like I want to slingshot somebody across the thing and see if they like that wouldn't work in the real world, but in Muppets, they absolutely
we chased after a pirate ship because my character had an umbrella, so all of the characters piled into the umbrella and sailed it after the pirate ship, because
that's classic.
Because why not? And of course it went very badly, but we got there and it was fun. And going badly was part of the fun.
Yeah.
And we also ran into creatures that spoke and just meet sounds. And my character just tried to speak it back, and I rolled well, and so we just made those sounds at each other, and now we're cartoons and it's working. Like that is so delicious. And watching everybody lean into the cartoon logic, they start describing their characters like with that exact like frame stretch deliciousness.
Yeah, and so like understanding that genre and being able to lean into it so that we do walk down the stairs, or if we're in a fantasy, like classic high fantasy genre, like of course you wouldn't just walk into the dragon's lair, but like let's go walk into the dragon's lair, right? Like of course a child should not be carrying an egg across all of what is it in Dragon Prince, whatever the place in Dragon Prince is that he carries the egg through. Like of course he shouldn't be the one to do that. We should get an adult to do that. But like in ET, of course a child shouldn't be befriending an alien. They should just go get a parent. But like that's the genre. And so when we can lean into that, and when the players can lean into that too, which is why I think it's really important to have player principles and GM principles, and why I was really excited when I saw like what are the player, I think you call it like what are the players doing, what's the GM doing in this, which is essentially that same kind of guidance. That like it was in this book because I think it's so important, especially in something that has such a specific genre, to remind players what they're doing there.
I want to keep this us gushing about you train going, because the other thing that I was so excited to see in the Land of Eam was the relationships and the amount of importance that you put on that, because I just love relationships, and I think session zeros are so important. And when the dynamic of a party has mechanical benefit, I call them like soft mechanics, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it pays off in spades. Just like I watched new TTRPG players turning to those relationships and the notes they took to guide them. And I was just so thrilled that you guys included it, and wanted to know what made you decide that that was important enough.
Gosh, it doesn't sound right, but it's like it's a way to kind of engineer camaraderie.
Yeah,
it's like, how do you create in a matter of minutes, or like just really say you're playing for 2 hours with a new group of people, like you're only getting to know each other for like a hot second. So how do you create a fellowship of the ring in that short amount of time? Well, if you're invested in each other and you understand each other and each other's motivations and the connections that you have to everyone, it speeds it up, because that becomes your North Star for how to play with these people.
Also, baking in some like soft conflict between people is always fun. It's going to be fruitful down the road. And then mechanically, we made the choice of you're gaining XP in Land of Eam, but it's never going to be for killing stuff. And so having this like just interacting with the other players, role playing, that's incentivizing that with XP.
Yeah, taking risks, working together, being creative. That's how you gain experience and advance in the Land of Eam.
Yeah,
because those are the things that I think make for those great moments in a game that you remember, and that's sort of that's ifs, ands, and buts. It's
so funny because it's like mechanically dangling a carrot in front of the players to do the thing that we want them to do, and then they get the fictional points because of it. And then but that's the whole. I mean, I think about like Lady Blackbird, where you have your keys that you are working towards, and like these are the things that I'm supposed to be doing, and if I do these things, I'm playing the character right. Or I'm playing I'm playing the playbook that I chose. And so I get rewarded when I, stand up to authority, or when I, whatever the playbook keys are. And that can be such a powerful in for players, especially with players that have either played a lot of trad games that don't include that stuff, and they're now looking to come into a system and like kind of have help with developing, they're only playing 5 sessions and they want to feel like they played 50 sessions because they want to fall in love with it the same way they did with a game that they played for a very long time. And when they only play 5 sessions, I find sometimes players are like, oh, it's cool, but I'm going to go back to the thing that I know, or the thing that made me feel this way. And so when you get that shortcut, that's really nice. And then also I think for players that have never played before, you get this like guidance for them on like, if I don't know what to do, I can always go back to those relationships and look how I can interact with another player.
Yeah, the
Yeah, right.
combination of the personal quest and the relationships that you guys
Yeah.
did is just a wrapped present for the GM. I always tell people when they're playing, like, a lot of times people come to the table and they'll have this really deep character backstory and they'll have this like secret quest for their character, this thing that they want, and they don't want to tell anyone at the table. They keep it secret. And I am always like, you have to tell me. You have to tell the other characters in play and let a girl know, because if you don't say it, it doesn't exist. And you can say it in a session 0. We played a game recently where I was like, I think this is probably going to be my character's 3-act arc if she survives. Because then everyone knows the kind of story I'm driving to, even if it doesn't end up being that way. But like that, you two having that on the character sheet, like mwah, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
What I thought was cool in Daggerheart, in the campaign frames, is the section where it's telling the players like, think this way. Like it's sort of like unique. I don't know, like player ideals. I'll just call it that.
Yeah, principles. Yeah.
Principles. Yeah. So how did you? I guess a larger question: how did you settle on doing the campaign frame?
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm laughing because it was wild.
Do you want me to take it, Rowan? Or do you
Go
want to
around,
take it?
fly, be free.
Well, it came after a lot of it came pretty late in the process. We were doing location. Well, first we did themes, and you're going to be able to take like multiple theme packs that had like useful tools in it. Kind of, I mean, not dissimilar to like some of the roll table stuff that you guys did in yours, where it's like, okay, we're doing the theme of desert, and we're doing the theme of opulent. Okay, those are 2 themes that we have. If we combine those 2 themes, then here's a bunch of stuff that in the combination of those you could use for some like rich city in the desert, which is really cool tech. But we found that for people jumping in new, especially GMs, it put a lot of weight on them to just go and like kind of do it themselves in a way that didn't get them in quick enough to play. They then had to like do the work to get there. And while I think it's a really cool idea and might come back in something later, like that, it didn't work. And then we were in locations and we were like, okay, what if we just build like a bunch of locations, because we didn't want there to be a place that you had to know a bunch of lore about for Daggerheart in specific. And I think that's one of the areas where like design wise, you all were coming from a place that already existed, that already had an audience, that already had buy-in. And also it's like such a fun premise of the world that we can buy into that. And I think for Daggerheart, it was like, we're starting whole cloth here. And we want to build something that lets you play the way that people who watch Critical Role enjoy, we want you to play the way they play, which is like, you want to be story focused, character focused, and also you want them to be playing in a world they care about. And for a small bit of audience, that might be Exandria, the place that Critical Role takes place in. But for the large swath of the role-playing game community, that's actually something that they all build together collaboratively.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, well, we're not doing a full setting, but we could do like little locations that you could drop into a world that you make. If you like are going to a forest, oh, here's a cool forest location I can pull in and have all of that.
It's a really cool idea.
Yeah. Thank you. And then we were like at the tail end of the game. We had closed. I don't know if we had closed the open beta. I think we had. And I think so. And I came to Rowan and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I think I figured out what we need to do here, and it's gonna change stuff. And she was like, okay, hit me. And I pitched campaign frames, which is like, okay, we give them in a variety of subgenres, like what is the starting place for you to begin a campaign, and it doesn't need to exist in a world. It just can be contained to what it is. And if you want to go play classic high fantasy, we can go take you into Witherwild. You can jump straight into that. It feels a little Princess Mononoke. It feels a little bit Zelda. Like if you want to go do faction, alliance, political intrigue, like we have one for you there. You can go play Avatar: The Last Airbender or Game of Thrones in that. And so we were thinking about like, what are the subgenres that people want to play in, and how do we give them a starting block from which they can just take off? And how do we make, in all of that, how do we continue to make it collaborative? And that's the big question.
I love campaign frames. And as soon as he said it, I knew it was the right answer. And we ran at it. And to a lot of folks' credit, I think some people didn't necessarily see the value of them even after the book delivered. And we're very lucky that people have trust in us, and the community really embraced them. But I often explain them like campaign frames are teaching a man to fish rather than giving a man a fish.
Yeah.
In that I think different games ask different things of the people who are going to play it. Like, crunchier games are like, okay, be on your math. Count those dice. Like, pay attention to your skills. Like, you got to engage with that. And Daggerheart really is asking its players to engage with story. The GM and the players need to be paying attention to the fiction in a really collective way. And so campaign frames, the thing that excites me so much about them is that we're not just giving people a city that was built in the skeleton of a god they killed. We're giving people the tools to understand why that is a valuable place to have here. Like a people who killed their god and now have to go conquer some other land because they're suffering for it. Like being able to have kind of a almost writer's room style discussion with the folks who pick that up. Then hopefully any changes they want to make or any places they want to expand, they can come from an informed place of why those tools are valuable, and feel like I never want people to have lore and they're like, oh God, what if I forget it? And they feel like abandoned at the table. I want them to have just like a little tiny bite.
Or they don't know how to collaborate. They don't know how to contribute because they feel like if they say something wrong, it's going to step on the lore, or it's going to like step on something that's already established. And it's like, we're going to give you basically everything that we know, and we're going to give you some starting play. Like, you go run, like make it your own, take it and change it. And, and the point is to play to find out. The point isn't to know. Right. And so how do we create something to do that makes them feel, and I feel like you all did a really great job in like creating some really evocative places that had great conflicts baked in, and then sort of just turning the players over to be like, I saw a lot of DNA in that as well, of like, we're going to create conflicts and we're going to create like archetypes of places, and we're going to give you some explanation, but the book is not huge. Thankfully, the book is not full of stuff that you just like have to memorize to be able to play. And so I when I was reading through it to run the game, I was like, this is so on track with the kind of way that we want to do lore. Given that you already have lore in novels and stuff, I imagine there's some navigating there. But I felt a lot of
we definitely
there.
We definitely gave a lot of fish with our sandbox setting. But it's in a way that is like, we want the GM to be able to just read it as a reference book, not have to memorize any lore.
It's like, accessible. It's
accessible. Yeah.
We grew up on a lot of stuff that was cool but inaccessible.
Yeah.
It's like you open up the quest that you're going to play, and it's like, all right, after the first 6 hours, I've now read this quest. What do I do? So our philosophy is like, just because there's a lot of it doesn't mean it has to be impenetrable. Make it emergent, make it discovery. You're reading a book. Well, reading a book is a lot more fun than reading just like history text and lore for page upon page. Read the story of the character and you've discovered the world. Go through the sandbox and it's like, it's designed to be accessible even though it's gigantic. So that
and then
discover.
And combined with the the character class abilities,
Yeah.
where players are encouraged to just make stuff up about the world.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's one of my favorite parts.
that also like de-emphasizes the lore. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, there's a conversation. There's a concept that we talk about a lot when we're jumping into a book, which is like there's the conversation that's happening between the players and the GM, and there's a conversation that's happening between the book and the GM, and those are two different conversations,
Right.
Mhm.
right? And then there's a conversation that is happening between the book and the players sometimes when they're doing character creation. But like once they do character creation, generally the conversation between the book and the players is kind of over.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
The GM is often the only one who ever reads
the
the book.
GM is right. And so it's like, okay, what's the conversation between the GM and the player? What's the conversation between the GM and the book? Like, what are we telling them, and how do we empower them in a way that lets that emphasizes the importance of and throws the support behind the conversation between the players and the GM, doesn't get in the way of the conversation between the players and the GM. And so whenever we're like building stuff, we're like, is this getting in the way of that conversation, or is it helping it? And sometimes we'll cut stuff or change stuff because of that. And I think that is really, really useful in building these kinds of games where we want people who are maybe engaging for the first time or come in. I mean, you all have a world that's already built, coming into a world. And I had never, I didn't know anything about the work that you all done before I bought the book. And so it's like, once I bought the book, I was like, okay, I'm reading it and I'm going into it. And I'm like, I could totally run this. And then I'm like, oh my God, there's a whole world that like the Dungeoneers and like, all that, like the whole world I can dive into, but I don't have to do that.
Right.
And
So
all of
I think you guys did a really great job of that.
And all of this is to say, like, there is no harm in giving people fish, and I love to give people fish, but also the reality is you guys carved the river. You built the earth, you carved the river, you filled it with fish, and then you gave them fishing poles, and you were like, come, I've made you a really lovely river. And I think you were really successful there.
But we also wanted to like give so many fish that you couldn't possibly know all the fish. And that's the point. Like, please don't memorize all the fish. Just like encounter the fish as they come, as is necessary.
Yeah, there's a lot of fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of fish in your heads.
Well, with that image, we are sadly coming up upon time.
Wow.
I know it is my I know it's my job to come and take the punch bowl away. But I guess what this says to me is I should probably try and have the four of you on again sometime in a couple months.
Sure.
Because this was clearly a very fruitful grouping. But in terms of outro, I'll ask James, Ben, where can people find Land of Eam and the Gelatinous Goo, and I'm going to say it wrong, Dungeoneer Adventures?
That's correct.
That's right.
Oh, I said it right. Yes. Where can people find those things?
Well, you can check out Land of Eam at exaltedfuneral.com. They also have a new Exalted edition of the Rickety Stitch series, which is really cool and pretty in a slipcase, which is awesome. And if you want to try out the game, you can go to landofelm.com and you can check it out with the quick start guide and download it for free. And Dungeoneer Adventures is available online or anywhere books are sold, and in Portugal and Greece.
Portugal and Greece. Spencer and Rowan,
I also
downloaded.
I was going to say I also downloaded the quick start guide as I was prepping to do that game, and it is so good. You all nailed it. Quick start guides are so hard. So hats off to you for getting an amazing quick start guide together. I printed out the whole thing and I was ready to go. So thank you.
So download the quick start guide for Land of Eam and give it a try because it's really good and fun.
It's really good.
Put that on the back of the book. It's really good. So Spencer, Rowan, it's almost a facile question, but I'll ask, where can people find Daggerheart?
Ron, do you want to go? You should go.
You can find it at the Critical Role shop. You think you can find it at Barnes & Noble? That's kind of cool. You can find it at your friendly local game store.
It's crazy going into Barnes & Noble and seeing a game. It's like absurd. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
That one actually did make me cry. But if you have a friendly local game store, it might be there, and you should check that out first. And then you should go play games with your friends at your friendly local game store because they are the backbone TTRPGs.
Amen.
You can also find more information at daggerheart.com. We also have a quick start guide there. We also have class packs that are out now. If you don't want to jump into the full game, you can just go grab a class pack and play with your friends. And we have Hope and Fear coming out as well, which is the first expansion for the game. And that is hitting in this summer. So we're really excited for it. But thank you, Ben, for having us on. This was so fun.
Yeah,
Thank
this is
you.
fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. 100th episode. We didn't know.
Wow. Momentous. We should
And,
crack open some yoo-hoos.
I try to write down possible titles as we're going through here, and I wrote down, I will not be shackled by my own lore. I wrote down Sauron wasn't defeated by fisticuffs. But then I just wrote down beneath that, this may be the best episode of the podcast ever. So maybe I'll just go with that as the title. That'll bring people in. So with that, I will stop recording. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.